Hey folks. It's going to be another Radiance video today. It's only been a short while since my last video about Radiance, in which I showed the planning sheet that I created. But we've gotten some big news and some unexpected news since my last video from Kabam. So I have up here the summary from the last live stream that Kabam did. The summary was put together by the wonderful Mr. Akbar. And the key bit of news here is that Radiance is coming to the other game modes besides Battlegrounds a lot sooner than we thought, or at least a lot sooner than I thought. Kabam Crash had said that this was coming, but he had nebulously said just later in the year. I, at least, and I think many other people, assume that when you just give a vague time frame of later in the year, that means much later in the year. But it's actually coming quite soon. So Alliance War, the very next season of Alliance War, which starts on May 28th, that is going to be the first season in which we are getting some Radiance. And when I say some, it's basically all of the rewards that you get for War, besides the Shatter tokens, are now going to be in the form of Radiance. So that's the season starting May 28th. It's a 4-week season, so that's end of June is when you're going to start seeing the first Radiance income from Alliance War. And so that's all tiers from the very top, Masters 1, 2, 3, right? So down through Gold 6. You'll still get Shatter tokens and I guess titles for those who care about that, but the vast majority of the rewards, again, are going to be in the form of Radiance. And we'll talk in more detail about just how much Radiance. And similarly for Alliance Quest and Raids, so June 9th, roughly 1 month from now, that's when we're going to see from that Raids cycle, the first time that we get Radiance rewards. And then the following week is when regular AQ will also start delivering Radiance as part of the rewards. So here you're still going to be getting Glory. Now the Glory store, I think most people are aware, the value of the items in there, it's quite outdated, but still, you're still going to be getting that Glory. It's still useful, and so you're getting the Radiance on top of that, and that's for the top 3,500 alliances. So I imagine the vast majority of alliances that are doing at least some trivial amount of AQ are going to be getting some Radiance income going forward. I have now in front of me the planning sheet, and this is the same planning sheet, the same link that I shared in the previous video. There have been quite a few changes to it, which I'll briefly describe. The first set of changes are in this Radiance income section. So in addition to Battlegrounds, which was there before, I've added Alliance Quest, Alliance Raids, and Alliance War information. Second set of changes is this new Notes and Advice section. Some of you may have seen the excellent YouTuber Truth Comic. He did a recent video on Radiance. He was using a variation of the sheet to talk about the Radiance income that we're now getting from all these different game modes, and what's the the best, smartest way to think about how to maximize your income and how to get the most value out of your purchases. And one thing that he suggested to me was, in addition to just being able to see the Radiance from any one particular configuration of these these anticipated ranks, well, what can you potentially get by pushing, right? Or what are you potentially missing out on if you don't hit your goal, or if you decide to back off a little bit in any particular game mode? And so that's the genesis of these items that you see here, is advising you on how much you could potentially get if you push just a little bit more. And then finally, in the purchase planner itself, these consumables, again, that's something that Truth Comic did suggest, is that he wanted to see that. And it makes sense that for high-tier war players, where boosts are a big part of play in high-tier war, right? You want to boost up as much as possible. These greater boosts typically are only infrequently available for purchase, so having them now continuously available for purchase, I do expect that high-tier war players are going to be regularly buying these items out of the store. The other things that I added here, it's really correcting an oversight of mine from the first version. I incorrectly thought, I misread the post, that these one-off items were only going to be added to the store later in the year. And that's not true. Those items are actually in the store now, and so accordingly, I've added them to the sheet. Okay, so let's just briefly go over how to use this sheet. Again, it's not going to be too much different from the previous video, but for those of you who hadn't seen that video, first step is that you'll go File, Make a Copy, and then you'll have a version of the sheet that you can make changes to. The second step is to go into this anticipated Radiance income section and set your goals for each one of these game modes. Where do you think that you'll finish? You know, this can be some combination of where have you finished in the past, as well as, well, I'm planning on putting in more effort now that I'm going to be rewarded more handsomely. So where am I going to apply that effort? One thing to keep in mind, and this is potentially confusing, but I do think I thought about this a bit, and I think that where I ended up is the most intuitive way to present the information. So each one of these game modes has its own cycle on which rewards are given out. So Battlegrounds, for example, there's a 4-week season and then a 1-week off season, so a total of 5-week cycle. Alliance Quest, there's a new Alliance Quest each and every week, and you're getting your now you'll be getting Radiance at the conclusion of each one of those weeks. Similarly with Raids, even though Raids is only happening 1 out of every 4 weeks, you are getting your Raids rewards at the conclusion of that week. And I should be careful here. One thing I want to emphasize is that this is Raids week. You aren't necessarily doing Raids. There are some alliances that choose to do normal AQ during Raids week. You should still separate that out because you're going to be ranked differently. So whatever you're ranking during the non-Raids weeks, that's what you'll put here. And then even if you're doing normal AQ during Raids week, you're going to say, well, where do I rank during Raids week, and put that here. And then finally, Alliance War, that's a 6-week cycle now. It's 4 weeks of the season and then a 2-week off season. So I think it's clearest to put the rewards that you get on the cycles for those game modes, right? So this 16,500 is what you're getting every week that you're doing AQ, whereas this 93,000 is what you're getting every 5 weeks from Battlegrounds. However, even though you're seeing these amounts on different periodicities, in order to aggregate that information into one useful number, now the sum cell is showing the average income over a 5-week window. So I chose 5 weeks because that is the cycle on which most of the items in the store reset, right? So it makes sense to think about, okay, well, over 5 weeks, what's my total income, and therefore how can I best most effectively deploy that income into the store on each reset cycle. Okay, so just to highlight this notes and advice section, you can see here I've set for now Quantum 1, and we talked in the previous video about how there's a big gap in potential income between Quantum 1 and Mysterium 3. So you can see here that the notes do say if you were to push to that next tier in Battlegrounds, meaning if you were to get to Mysterium 3, you would add 56k plus Radiance, which would be a 20% increase on my overall 5-week Radiance income. That's not just the Battlegrounds. That's even after accounting for what I'm getting from Alliance Quest, Raids, and War. Just that one rank improvement in Battlegrounds is going to give me 20% more Radiance. So you can see why this is such I guess an anxious or an anxiety causing inflection point, I guess, in the rewards distribution for Battlegrounds. Certainly for me, this is very relevant. I typically do finish in Quantum. Let's see, if I push more this season, can I finish in a Mysterium? Maybe not, but it is worth the effort to try because it's 20% more Radiance. Okay, and then so getting to the purchase planner, again, how you use it hasn't changed. So you'll go in and you'll say, well, if I have roughly 277,000 Radiance to spend from that 5-week cycle, what's the best way to spend it? So let me first zero everything out here. What else is left? 6 stones. Okay, so starting from 0, I am going to go after the T7B first. And maybe I choose to go for 2 T7B. So I'm going for, I have to stay within 276k. This cell here will change to a red background color if I go over. You can see if I went to 3. Now I'm over budget, right? So you get that visual indicator to help you out. So I might choose to spend the vast rewards of my budget on as much T7B as possible, and then just spend the leftovers on, let's say, maybe some T4A. So that's one possibility. Maybe I say, you know what, let me not go too crazy over the T7B. Let me make it more like 1.4 T7B, and then it lets me get more T4 alpha. I'm gonna make it 8. Let me make it 6, and then now I can get some 6 stones. this is, I mean, I shouldn't really be thinking too hard about this. This is not a real basket here, but you can see how you might go about playing with the planner to see what's going to make most sense for you in the end, right? So this particular configuration was 1.4 T7B, 40 SIG stones, and 6 T4A. But if I valued, let's say that I didn't have quite as deep a roster, and so even though I have a lot of income that could be spent on T7B, it actually makes more sense for me to be chasing as much T3A, T6B, basically the R3 ranked up materials as possible. And maybe I need more champs, right? So let me get some Titan crystals too. Let me get some 7-star crystals, right? Whatever. I don't want to spend too much time on just these play examples. It's really just to give you a sense of how you might go about using the sheet. I do want to spend some time in particular. I talked in my previous video about this unit value column, and I have made some changes there that I'll talk about. But the idea behind this unit value column is just to give you a rough sense of what is the equivalent value in units of a particular basket of materials. And I certainly wouldn't say for anybody that you should go in and think first and foremost in terms of how do I maximize the equivalent unit value of my purchases. I think there's really just more as like useful something to kind of double check your thoughts, right? Or maybe to use as a tiebreaker. But in any case, the reason why I wanted to talk about it was, well, one, how did I even come up with these valuations? These aren't actually my own valuations. I thought about making it, how do I perceive the value? But I didn't really think that was going to be broadly useful. So instead, it's primarily based on knowing that units themselves are in the Radiance store. It's 1208 units, or 1208 Radiance for 75 units. Taking that same conversion factor and applying it to all the other items, you get this, that's column C here, just this implied unit cost. And then it's very minor tweaks that I apply to come up with, basically, here's how Kabam appears to value these items. So that's going to be, no matter who you are, that's consistent that, well, Kabam's valuation is Kabam's valuation. So you can either decide to go with Kabam's valuation as a guiding, as a guide, I guess. Or you can go ahead and feel free to change these values in your own version of the sheet, and whatever values you input here are going to be picked up and used in this rough unit valuation, right? So then you can maybe use it as a more important factor in your decisions, right? The third thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is getting a little bit off topic, but I thought it was interesting, is that it's not really relevant to the sheet, but just I added this extra column here. We had this recent Red and Dead spending event where we got some free, what they call poolies, this new currency that was very specific just to this one event. We got some free ones. You could go and buy more if you wanted to, and then Kabam had 12 or 13 pre-configured bundles that you could purchase with these poolies. And since you could buy poolies with units, and since some of the items in these pulley bundles also exist in the Radiance store, I won't go into details of exactly all the math involved. It's not that interesting, but I was able to come up with very rough, but still, I think, directionally accurate unit valuations of the items in the Red and Dead store that also appear in the Radiance store. And I thought it was interesting that if you just glance through these items, it seems like for the most part, Kabam just is giving like a 50% discount on whatever the valuation is in the Radiance store. Well, that's it's half that valuation or half that cost in the Red and Dead event. It's not true across the board. Some of the more, I guess, common items like T3A, T6B, T5CC, T4A, there's a deeper discount there. It's more like 1/3, which makes sense, right? That it's going to be the juicier items that Kabam doesn't have to discount as much. Whereas the more common items, if you want to get the users interested in buying those, you have to discount them a little bit more. So between 1/3 and 1/2, the usual purchase price, right, was what the price was during the special spending event. And I thought that was interesting. I haven't made any attempt previously to try and figure out the valuations of items, or the value being given as part of any Kabam offers. I don't know if this roughly half off valuation is typical for Kabam spending events, but it's something I'm going to keep an eye out on. This next July 4th event, I'm going to see, is Kabam sticking to that? Do they try to discount items to roughly half of their usual cost? And if so, then that gives me a framework that maybe that's interesting, that maybe I'll make some videos in the future, or at least just shorts or blog posts on whenever Kabam has an offer, whether it's as part of a big spending event, or whether it's just just a random offer that they give out of cycle. Is it meeting that? Is it at least half off of the usual price? And if it is, then okay, well, that's something that you don't have to worry about. Oh, maybe I should wait for the next spending event and I'll get better value. No, this is roughly the value that you get from the usual value that you would get from a spending event. You're getting it in this offer, right? Not to say that, if you're really desperate for an item, even if it's not meeting that half off rough threshold, maybe it still makes sense for you to get it, right? But yeah, that might be interesting to see what kind of valuation does Kabam use when it's pricing these offers during this big spending events and during the just random offers that you get, and is there any consistency from offer to offer? Okay, so I'll leave it there. Go back to this purchase planner tab. If you do have any feedback for me on the sheet, whether it's the presentation of it, right? Any ways that I can make it more intuitive, prettier, any information that you'd like to see added, whatever, just, please do leave me a comment down below. Otherwise, if you like this, please do leave me a like on the video. Please do share this video and the sheet with your friends, with your alliance mates. I would like to try and help the community as best I could, as well as just, for, I guess, my own selfish purposes. I'd like to see my sub count grow. Ideally, I'd like to get to 200 by the middle of the year. I am trying to put out more content more frequently, try to make this, make a real go of it on this channel, right? So, yeah, and anything that you can do as far as helping me get that sub count out would really be appreciated. And in case, hope the sheet was useful to you. Take care. Have a great day.